This is the open-ended response portion of the assessment. Read the passages and respond to the prompt. Write neatly and clearly in the space provided. If you finish the test early, you may check over your work until time is called. Directions. Read the passage below and answer the questions that follow. Part 2. Anna Strong, The Culper Spy Ring. This is a personal narrative written by Anna Strong, a spy during the American Revolution. A patriot from the beginning. 1. I was born in 1740. My claim to fame is being one of the few women in the famous Culper Ring. This was a secret intelligence network during the American Revolution. We were based around New York City and Long Island. My adventure begins. During the Revolutionary War, I lived in the town of Setauket in Long Island, New York. My husband, Silas Strong, was a patriot judge at the time. He was captured and held prisoner by the British on a ship out in New York Harbor. I was left all alone to tend to the family home with the enemy close by. At the time, women were not seen as a threat. I used this to my advantage to help the patriot cause. One way we helped was through the Culper Ring. This was a way to supply General Washington with military intelligence on the British forces in the area. These British forces controlled New York City. Our trade craft. 3. In August 1778, the Culper Ring was created. It was headed by Abraham Woodhull. He was my neighbor and a farmer. Mr. Woodhull's code name was Samuel Culper Sr. We used code in all our communication with General Washington. Our ring used many other methods to protect ourselves. For example, we wrote in secret ink. We also used dead drops. This is when you leave information in secret places for other people to pick up later. 4. Mr. Woodhull recruited me. He later wrote that I could outwit them all. The British had heightened security. Soldiers stopped and searched every man traveling alone because they fit the profile of a spy. I was to go with Mr. Woodhull as his wife on a visit to visit the family in New York. In reality, Mr. Woodhull was collecting and delivering important intelligence during this trip. The trick worked. The British never stopped or questioned us. Secret message in the library. 5. I came up with a creative way to notify Mr. Woodhull when Caleb Brewster was in Setauket. Mr. Brewster was an important source of information for us. The British were constantly patrolling the water. Mr. Brewster had to be very careful where he hid his ship. There were 6 coves where he could hide that were close to my home. 6. When I saw Mr. Brewster's ship come in, I would hang my black petticoat on the laundry line. I also hung 1 to 6 handkerchiefs to show which cove he was hiding in. Mr. Woodhull would see my laundry line and go visit Mr. Brewster to gather intelligence. My story ends. 7. After the war, I was reunited with my husband. We even got to meet General George Washington. We named our next child George Washington Strong after the general. My husband and I lived out the rest of our days in Setauket. The Culper Spy Ring. This passage is adapted from the website of the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency. 1. The British seized control of New York City in autumn of 1776. After this happened, many people in New York became spies for George Washington. Of particular importance was the Culper Spy Ring. This group of about 20 men and women was formed in the summer of 1778. They worked from an outpost above New York City. The most important piece of information obtained through the Culper Ring came in July of 1780. It came from a spy known to this day only as Lady. Lady reported that a British general, Sir Henry Clinton, was sending British troops by sea from New York to a nearby city. There, these British troops would attack French troops that had just arrived to help the colonists. The French troops had been at sea for 2 months. General Clinton wanted to attack them before they recovered from the trip. George Washington received this intelligence on the afternoon of July 21st. He immediately drew up plans for a fake attack on New York City. Then he had the plans delivered to a British outpost by a local farmer. The farmer claimed to have found the plans on a nearby road. In the meantime, Washington also marched his army toward New York City. He wanted to make it seem like he was preparing to launch an attack there. As a result, General Clinton believed that an attack was about to happen. He called back the British troops and then at sea to strengthen the city's defenses. Lady's intelligence in Washington's actions thus saved the tired French troops from a likely defeat. The French troops then joined with the colonial army. 1. Read the two passages, Anna Strong and the Culper spy ring, then write an opinion essay about why the Culper spy ring was important to the outcome of the Revolutionary War. Your essay should be several paragraphs and should be supported with evidence from both passages. Write your answer on the lines below.